At the time of recording this video, it is the last day of the club festival, and this day has literally just kicked everybody's ass. It is such a hard day for club festival, and I hope in the future they'll kind of take notes on how people felt about club festival so far and change it to make it a little bit easier so everybody can participate. But that's a story for a whole nother video. Today we are going to be showcasing the new Compress that I just pulled. He's been in the game for a little bit. Unfortunately, I did not pull him back when his banner came out, and I think he has really had quite a few chances to shine in the club festival. The last day of the club festival specifically, he is almost necessary to get a halfway decent score on this stage. As you can see, I have 251,000 points for this day. I am the #1 contributor for my club at the moment, and if we go in and we were to look at the rankings for other players in my club, you would see that it is quite the difficult day for people. Fort Misery has 246. They are the closest to me, but they do have, level 130s, as you can see. And then we have Dub Noir at 191,222, and then it only goes down from there, right? Not very high scores for this last day. Like, people have really been struggling. So the fact that I was able to get 250,000 should tell you how good Compress is and how useful he can actually be in club festival. So with all that said, let's take a look at his kit real quick. I'll explain his kit and I will explain why he is so good in this particular club festival stage. I'm not going to be showcasing him in PvP or PvE, because he is decent in PvE. Like, he has technical hits, he has cooldown for all your team and stuff like that, but I feel like where he really shines, where we're gonna get the best showcase of how good he is right here in club festival. So let's go ahead and go in here and see what he's all about. As you can see, for the advanced leveling, I have his advanced leveling fully done, well, as much as you can for a character who is not DX'd. If we go into his ability board, keep in mind my Compress is only level 90 and I was able to get that score. I do not even have him up to level 100. I am one slot away from getting him to level 100. I don't have enough pieces to get him there just yet. And then on his basic route, it might surprise you to know that I don't even have him board 13. I have him board 11, still waiting for those extra drop rates to come around on this next weekend to get him up to board 13. I'm working on it. He's actually like my main focus right now. But at board 11, level 90, this character actually has carried me through the last day of club festival. So that should tell you how good he is, especially if you guys understand or remember just how ridiculous this day has been. So his plus ultra move is called Rock Magic, and this deals 600% damage to a single opponent with a high chance of binding them for 2 turns. Also shortens action skill cooldown time of all allies by 1. That high chance of binding is very nice, especially in this stage, because it binds them for 2 turns, making it so you don't get stunned as much, or making it so you don't get the counters from Kirishima, specifically in this particular stage, because Kirishima is not going to counter you if he is bound, which is really nice, so you don't take all that extra damage from him countering. The action skill cooldown time is really nice because it lowers your action skill cooldown time of all allies by 1. Unfortunately, Compress's action skills themselves are a little too high on cooldown, so you do have to run an action skill cooldown time memory on him on top of him lowering action skill cooldown time, but he can be very good. And what this means is, in club festival, by using Compress with this action skill cooldown time for all allies, you are able to have a full skill chain every single turn, and then all 3 plus ultras every turn your plus ultras come up, or every 3 turns. So it works out really well. His first action skill is called Release Illusion, and this deals 250% damage to all opponents. Decreases defense of all opponents by 30%, which is massive on this last day, with Kirishima and Deku giving extra defense to the team, right, and damage reduction, which is annoying, for 3 turns, with a low chance of binding all opponents for 2 turns. That binding usually hits at least one of the 3 characters, and when it does land, it is very good. If you don't land the bind on one of the 3 characters, you probably want to reset because you're going to die, but as long as you land the bind either on like Uraraka, or you land the bind on the Deku, you are going to be able to get through this just fine, even with a level 90 Compress. Like, that bind is huge, and you honestly land it more than you would think for having a low chance to bind, because it does hit all opponents. It's actually really good, like, not to be underrated. The second action skill is Stock Creation. It gives a single ally the ability to hide for 2 turns and regenerates the ally's HP by 15% for 2 turns. That can also be himself, I believe. From what I understand, he can give himself the ability to hide, and he can regenerate his own HP by 15% for 2 turns, which means they end up targeting your other characters, which kind of works out for him, because other than that, with him being my lowest level character, right, he has the lowest stats and he's constantly getting targeted. So even though he's constantly getting targeted, if you get one of those turns where you use this action skill and it lets Compress hide, then he's going to be able to regenerate that HP, and it works out really well actually. Also, he reduces damage to all allies by 25% for 2 turns. This goes really well with the Deku, who reduces damage by 30%, right? Because that becomes 30, 40, 55% damage reduction between the two of them, which is really, really good, right? 55% damage reduction is going to give you a lot of survivability, and that's why Compress almost becomes like a must-have on this particular day of Club Festival. His first auto skill is Mad Illusionist. It decreases the speed of all opponents' heroes by 20%, which is also very important. Couple that with the Dabi that I'm running on the team. That's a 50% speed down, so we don't have to run speed memories on our characters. When used in a second or later successfully executed skill chain, decreases skill impact of all opponents by 20% for 3 turns, and critical hit rate by 20% for 3 turns. So he reduces the opponent's defense with his action skills, and then with his auto skill, when he uses his action skills in a successfully executed skill chain, then he's also decreasing their skill impact and critical hit rate, just giving you even more survivability in addition to giving yourself defense. Like, that's really, 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 really good, right? His second auto skill, There's No Tricks Up My Sleeve, when used in a second or later successfully executed skill chain, so another technical hit, ergo why he would be good in VE Tower. Increases plus ultra gauge of all allies by 20%, also another reason he's good in VE Tower, and defense by 20% for 3 turns. So that takes it from 55% to 75% defense, which is just crazy amount of defense. So yeah, having Compress and the Deku on your team, Compress does 45% on his own defense, and then add Deku into it with his 30%, you have 75% defense, and it gives your team a lot more survivability, and that is why Compress is so freaking good as a support. This might even be realistically pretty viable in PvP, because you have the status element nullification with Deku, you have this guy who is going to give you extra defense. Your main thing would just be coming up with the speed you need for your team to work out. Like, he could honestly be good in all 3 areas. I think he's just really going to shine. I'm going to show you guys what he can do here in Club Festival. So Club Festival, I did pre-record this particular clip because it does require some resets to get the right RNG to get the score you want, but you guys will see how I got this high score right here of 251,825, and I will kind of voice over it and walk you through what I was doing at the time. So this is the start of my run, and pay attention to the action skill order because it does, become important later on. And so we're gonna go ahead and use the Hellfire with Dabi this turn because we don't want them to nullify it, right? Then we use Compress's Bind, and notice I did end up binding Uraraka. That is a massive, massive, massive W because Uraraka is obviously type advantaged against Compress. Notice Compress is getting targeted like I said he would because he is my lowest level character. He has the lowest stats, but even though he's getting targeted, also notice he's not taking a whole lot of damage because he has the extra defense from his own auto skills and from Deku being on the team, as well as his action skill that he just used this turn, which gave him even more defense. And then also all my characters are keeping pretty healthy with just having Deku on the team. Like, there is no better team for this particular day of Club Festival. I truly do believe this is the best team. And so Compress is actually just insanely good. We missed the bind right there, and it's kind of weird. I feel like sometimes I've used Compress quite a bit at this point. The plus ultra on Kirishima does not bind as much as the low chance to bind does for whatever reason. And I know there's resistances sometimes from the enemy Deku and you just can't do anything about that. But like, see, the low chance to bind hit right there, whereas the high chance to bind on the plus ultra didn't hit. So like, sometimes I think the low chance to bind on the action skill is almost better. But honestly, 2 turns of binding is underrated, and it's very, 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 very good, especially when it comes to interrupting skill chains and giving your team more survivability. Because if you look at my team right now, look at how much health we have, and that is largely because of the amount of defense that Compress gives along with Deku. And so basically Deku and Compress right here, the idea is they are my healers. They do a little bit of damage, right? But not all that much damage. Like, they're not doing insane amounts of damage, but they're just keeping Dabi alive so that Dabi can do the piercing damage and the Hellfire damage and actually kind of carry us through this event. And so you'll see right here, just Dabi's hitting massive numbers while Compress is there for his status elements. Once in a while, you don't hit the bind, as you saw right there. Unfortunately, we didn't get the bind, but that's all right. Usually, I feel like when you don't get the bind on the action skill, you get it later on the Plus Ultra. So I think we'll end up actually getting the bind on the Plus Ultra coming up right here, giving ourselves defense right here. And right there, you were also able to see the hide on Compress. So Compress is going to be hiding now, meaning he won't be targeted. So you'll see that right here. They start targeting Deku, which is fine because Deku has last stands. He starts taking 0 damage from the extra defense of having Compress on the team. If you can get Deku to be the one who's targeted, he literally takes no damage, which is just actually insane. Like, look, 0 damage. He's doing fantasy Kirishima numbers when it comes to defense, having Compress on the team. Like, that's what Compress can do. It's actually just insane, guys. How much, like, come on, that 0 damage is impressive. We did land the bind with Compress as well on Kirishima there with the Plus Ultra that time around. So, like, overall, you have to admit, after seeing this, Compress is kind of OP. There's another bind on Deku. And so, oh my gosh, like, I'm still, even after, I did this run earlier, and I've done it a couple of times, even still looking at it, I'm mesmerized every time by how much I slept on this character and how good he is. He hit again. And because he hit again, Deku is the one that's getting targeted, and the fact that Compress was able to hide, you noticed the first time he hid, he was down to like half health. Well, now they had to target Deku, and Compress is all the way back to full, and my team is fully healthy, and I don't have to worry about anyone dying. So Compress, actually just insane and insanely good. I would almost call him, like, this is going to sound weird, but he's like an off support. He's like the first, I think, true off support in the game in a way, and it's weird to say that we have an off support. Like, Deku would be the main support, right? And then Compress is the off support, because Compress really doesn't do a ton of healing, but he does a ton of, like, you know, crit down, impact damage down, defense down on the enemy, defense up for our team, but he doesn't do a lot of healing, so I would call him an off support, which is kind of what he is, and I think he does really well in that role. And the bind that he gives is such nice utility. It's really, really good in my opinion. And we're coming to the end here. I think we're on, what, turn 13 out of 14? I think. Oh, nope, that was turn 14. Okay, that was turn 14, and you can see how low we got Ochako or Araka specifically. Deku's fairly low, but Kirishima still has a lot of his health. But all of that was due to Dabi's damage, and the only reason Dabi was able to do that damage is because of Compress and Deku keeping him alive and tanking that ridiculous, that is just absolutely ridiculous tanking for characters who arguably aren't meant to be tanks. So yeah, that is the showcase for Compress. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Did you think he was good? Do you think he's good for Club Festival? Do you have him? Do you wish you had him? And there's the team one more time for you guys. Not that it will necessarily be useful at the time that you're watching this video, but maybe in the future there obviously will be more Club Festivals. Maybe this will be helpful to you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.